into the future more than a year and look at growth. And if you look
Okay,
at the
folks,
number
I
of
just want to announce that I've clicked the recording button. No challenges for this conversation, but we are being recorded. And Alan, you may want to remind people of that when we start, which could be any minute now. There's 5 of us on board.
Lee, I'm not a committee member.
I know, I'm counting.
Okay.
Oh, there's 4 of us on
Yeah.
4
board.
of us,
Yeah.
right.
We need one more.
One more. So anyway, I'm sorry, Murray, your comment as far as planning?
Never mind.
She doesn't want to be recorded on that one.
I see, yeah. Well, I do think that that's an important thing. I mean, you know, you need to think about where we're headed. And,
Okay, here comes Rick Atherton. Rick, are you on board? Yes. Oops, Rick's just getting up. And Bill Greeter. Hey, Bill,
Hey, Bill.
did you persist to the end of the meeting?
I gave up the ghost, had dinner and went back and it was still going on. They got through at about 9:15-ish, 9:30-ish.
Yeah,
Oh, imagine. The poor select board.
Hey, who's that?
so
fellow
this
from-
was
Who's the fellow
planning
from
and
Wisconsin?
economic development. We're considering local area plans. And Mary and I were there for town area and Bill was there for Matticat. Bill, it went till 11 o'clock.
Did it really?
Mhm.
Oh, that's right, because when I bailed out, they had transportation manager and
They had the whole warrant article to discuss.
yeah,
Oh, yikes.
Okay.
that's what happens when they put off meetings for 3 months or whatever.
Alan, that's my rather slow clock. I make it 4:03.
4:03, okay. Let me call a meeting of the Roads and Right-of-Way Committee to order for March 16th. I declare we have a quorum present and suppose I should do a roll call.
Yes, just hang on a minute. We are admitting.
There's Ed.
Ed Gillum, okay.
Great. Okay, Ed, I just called the meeting to order and I'm going to call the attendance answer here. Lee,
Here,
Snooky,
Yeah.
Phil,
Here.
Rick,
Here.
Bill,
Blah, blah, blah here.
and Ed.
Here.
Good. Okay.
Bill, I'll remind you, you're being recorded to go onto YouTube.
Right. So any comments we make, if anybody ever tunes into in their free time, tune into the Roads and Right-of-Way Committee meeting. Okay. First item, this is public comment. Do we have any public tuned in?
I didn't see anybody.
Didn't? Okay. Seeing none. Move to the second item on the agenda, approval of minutes from Tuesday, February 16th. Any omissions, errors? Anyone notice anything with those minutes?
Alan,
Yes.
on page 3, section 4, there is discussion about Wynn Street connecting the bike paths along Milk Street and Matticat Road. Being a resident of Milk,
Ed, you're not coming through cleanly. A little closer to the microphone, maybe? Sorry, that's Phil.
It's Phil.
Sorry, a
Okay.
little closer to the microphone.
On page 3, can you hear me?
Yes,
Section 4, the discussion about Wynn Street and connecting Milk Street to Matticat Road. Being a resident of Milk Street, I believe that it's Milk Street Extension when you pass Prospect Street. So I think you're talking about the Milk Street Extension.
Still called Milk Street though.
Because Milk Street doesn't have a bike path.
No, I know that. I'm just trying to think of, I'm trying to visualize that, what we're talking about the connection between Matticat Road. No, wait a minute. This is Wynn Street, right?
Right.
And that we're just talking about between Matticat Road and
Milk
Yes,
Street
sir.
Extension. Near the summit, near the,
no, wait a minute. Is it Joy Street or is it? No, wait a minute.
okay. Joy Street ends at the entrance to the cemeteries. At which
Yes.
point it
Mount
becomes
Vernon.
Summit Pond Road, turns
Yeah.
right to go alongside the cemetery. And then at the stop sign with Milk Street or Milk Street Extension, turns left to go out to the beach.
Yeah.
Phil, I will look at GIS, and if it needs to be corrected, I will correct. If GIS calls that Milk Street, I'll send you a note.
okay,
I think the GIS will tell you that that is, even though that's Milk Street Extension by those in the know, it's still called Milk Street on the town records, I think.
Right. Okay, well, just so we know where we're talking about, basically, we're talking about going from what ultimately comes, yikes. Okay, we'll definitely take a look at that and correct if need be in the minutes. Okay, are there any other corrections anyone noticed in the minutes?
Make a motion to accept.
Okay, we have a
Second.
motion and a second.
Who seconded?
I did.
Snooky.
Okay, thank you, Snooki.
Okay, let me call the roll for approval. Lee,
Aye,
Snooky,
Aye.
Phil,
aye,
Rick,
aye,
Bill,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
and Leslie.
I'm sorry, I just signed on. What are we voting on?
The minutes from February 16th.
Got it. Aye.
Great.
hi,
Thank you.
Leslie.
Hello.
Just a point of order there, to save Lee some work,
I'm sorry, Bill.
to save Lee some work. Wait a minute, if I got it here. Milk Street, Wynn Street, the GIS calls it Milk. You can see on your screen.
Yeah, I can see.
Oh,
it.
that's true.
It's Milk to the intersection of Humming Pond. The
Yeah.
Intersection.
Right, exactly.
Okay,
So we have the same challenge, and Bill, thank you. We have the same challenge with Washington Street. The highest numbers of Washington Street are very often called Washington Street Extension. And yet that doesn't show up on the street list.
Okay, well, yeah, the names of the streets are, that's one of the items I want to bring up later in our agenda here about a definitive list of public and private ways. So we'll get to that. Okay. Chapter 91. we've been talking about Chapter 91 for some time, and the Civic League is going to be doing a forum on Chapter 91 on the 23rd. It's, wait a minute, I'm sorry, the 24th, that Wednesday, the 24th. And it's shaping up to be quite an interesting program. So let me just give you a quick overview of what's going to be covered. The first section is will be about Chapter 91. There'll be an introduction, sort of an overview of what it is, and then Jeff Carlson, the Natural Resources Department, will explain how it works, about the licensing, how the licensing is done, and so on. The second part of the forum will be about Nantucket and the future. And we have a speaker from the Mass Department of Environmental Protection, Carlos Fragata, will be there, and he'll be covering an overview of the specifics of the sort of innards of how, how the how it's laid up, and how the requests for licenses are processed and so on from the state side. There'll also be a speaker, Steve McKenna from the CZM Cape and Islands. He's the regional coordinator, and he will be talking about Chapter 91 in tidal areas. And then Hillary Rayport will be talking about licensing in the historic district, and Arthur Reed will also be presenting about the property owners' perspectives as a representative of a number of property owners over the years. So it looks to be a really interesting program. And the fact that people that we've been, now let me rephrase this, the people we would like to hear from are all going to be present there to give a detailed description of the plan and how it works, and the sort of ins and outs of it. So I wanted to bring that to your attention, and I also wanted to use our meeting here to maybe frame some questions, some things that we want to hear among, from the different speakers. So I know Leslie had mentioned that education is an important part of this Chapter 91. And of course, that's what the Civic League is attempting to do here. There is a lot of interest in Chapter 91. Anyone who owns a property in the filled tidelands or coastal property, it would be potentially impacted by the licensing requirements of Chapter 91. So with that, any suggestions as far as questions that we might want to raise from these very knowledgeable folks?
Alan?
Yeah, Rick.
Two thoughts. One, I think Steve McKenna also, hopefully anyway, is going to comment. If not, we can ask him about the intersection between Chapter 91 and harbor plans. He's aware we have a harbor plan and that there is an intersection, and people with a harbor plan have a little bit more at stake with Chapter 91 than people who don't. The other thing might be fun, just to, if someone's willing to ask, I'd be interested in something as basic from the state guy, whatever his name is, where he sends his mail to us. And he must have an address. It sounds kind of basic. Is he sending it all to Mr. Carlson? Does he send it to the town manager? That might help us in our Chapter 91 search. It sounds kind of odd, but sometimes you need to know the most basic thing of all.
Rick, I'm pretty sure he sends it to the Conservation Commission, but my being pretty sure is not the same as definitive.
Yeah.
It would also be nice to know the address. Does he send that to Broad Street? And what do they send it on to, Cubby out near the jetties? I don't know. Anyway, that in the for what it's worth category.
Right. For all that we've talked about Chapter 91 over the years, the main thing that our committee has been trying to ascertain is how those records are kept, and are they, how can we find out this information? How can we find out which properties have a Chapter 91 license? What are the conditions that are attached to it? And, all that sort of basic information. In spite of, our attempts to get answers to some of these questions, I was surprised. It wasn't until after our February meeting that I learned that the Civic League was going to do this forum on the 24th of this month of March. I was originally thinking it was going to be in April. So, great. What are some other concerns? Yes, Ed?
It's not a concern, but it's along the lines of what you were saying. I think the state must have some sort of a registration, surely, of the ones that have been, there's got to be some master list somewhere of the ones who have gone through such an involved process that there's got to be some sort of an end result. I'd also like to find out exactly how long they're good for, and which ones are grandfathered and not grandfathered, I know a lot of them are good for the 30-year lease, but a lot of them start in the old days. It might be, I don't know the duration of a lot of them, I guess.
Right.
And they have to be renewed.
Ed, there's a part answer to that. The Chapter 91 licenses are physical. They're paper products, and they're kept on file in their office in Boston or in the Boston area.
Is there a digital record?
To look at them, you need to know which one you want and make an appointment to visit. Nothing is online, and appointments are only granted for a in a limited window once a week.
So there's no digital records then?
No.
Wow.
Well, there is one more. It is a requirement for anybody who has a license that it be attached to the deed.
Right.
And Leslie and I have looked up some of these, and they can be found. You can seek licenses in the Secretary of State's website, or if you know the property, you can look up the property and then find the deed with it attached. But that doesn't answer Alan's question about how do we know which properties have them or which properties need them? That's a much broader question, which is not the same as looking up an individual property.
Well, that is correct, and that is the bigger question. But there's also a question of those that have them will they need to be renewed? What is the duration of them? There might be a lot of them that have them now that, quite frankly, are expiring. I don't know the duration of these things.
Typically 30 years, but that's not, that may not be 100% of them.
It's 30 for the new ones, but the older ones, I don't know.
Right. Good point. Good point. Rick, you had a question?
I think it's 90.
Alan, I did, but it was similar to Lee's answer. If you know the property, you can find it in the deed site. So,
Alan, my persistent question is any opportunity for Nantucket to obtain delegation of authority for the licenses? That's the question.
Okay, good. I'm trying to write these down, so I'm sure they'll be in the minutes too. Yes, Bill?
Um, Knowing how the Civic League forums go, they tend to either have more questions than they can get answered in the allotted time, or there's no questions. Doesn't seem to be any sort of rhyme or reason. It just depends on who happens to be there to attend. And some of these questions that we're talking about right now, not that they're contentious, but they're questions that have been asked repeatedly by this committee, going back a good amount of time and still no answers. So the question, I guess, is procedurally, what do you think about drawing a list of questions up, such as what Rick had and what Lee has mentioned, and asking Peter and Charlie, they generally like to have some in hand in case the audience doesn't come up with any.
Exactly.
And then at the end of all that, whatever was not able to be answered because of time or because of sensitivity of the discussion, that it gets forwarded to this representative from the state. So at least there's a dialogue going with this known entity on record, and we get some sort of answer back that way.
Excellent point. Yes, Rick?
Yeah, I know, I was gonna say that is a good point. My question is sort of so basic, we might even just ask the state guy in advance in writing.
Right.
And because it's sort of, a little detailed off the side, but once you have somebody who you can communicate with, and we're already in communication with these people, I think they want to be responsive, and answering that type of question ought to be very straightforward, so.
I would agree. And the fact that we have an audio, or that we have speakers that are right at the heart of this issue. I mean, these are the guys who deal with the licensing, who deal with all of this stuff. They certainly would have the answers to whatever questions. The format of the Civic League Forum does allow for questions at the end at different periods. For example, after the introductory part, there'll be another one at the end. So anyway, there will be a period for questions. And I think Bill's idea of having a list of questions that we can provide to the co-presidents of the Civic League, I assume, Lee, do you know if they will be doing the questioning, or will you be doing that?
I'm to be moderator, and I think Peter will be handling questions. We haven't formally discussed, but that's what we did the last time.
Right, good. All right, so I think that's a great idea, to have a list of some specific questions that we'd like answers to provide those to either Peter or Charlie or both at the Civic League, so that they do, whoever is asking the questions has them, instead of just waiting for them to come forward from whatever the audience is. It will be a Zoom meeting, much like our meeting here, or at least I assume it will be.
Yes.
Yeah, Leslie?
Sort of the flip side of Rick's question of where do they send the mail, how do we get in touch with them? Maybe even, I know that Jeff Carlson is a contact here on Nantucket, but who is the best contact person in the state? And is it email? Is it phone? Is it trot yourself up there and go? So
I think their contact information is on the agenda.
But even so, I'd like to know what is the best method, and what types of questions are they used to fielding directly from municipalities.
Right.
And
Rick?
I have a second question. Is that a follow-on to what I just asked, Rick?
Yeah, it is, because I know in this case, I've talked to Steve McKenna about this seminar, And he's very reachable. Just call his number and he'll call you back.
Okay,
And he's very open and informative and helpful.
that's good news. So the second, my other question is along the line of education. Some of my best ideas I've always gotten from somebody else. So what is the would they have an example of a best demonstrated practice of a community that where Chapter 91 communication and transparency and knowledge among the property owners is working well? You know, who's doing it right? Or what are some examples of educating the public about their property owners, about their responsibility for Chapter 91, but then also the public about their rights? Who's doing it well? Do they have examples of success in terms of educating the public and educating property owners?
Excellent. Good point. Yes, Bill?
It dawned on me to follow up on one of the statements that folks just made earlier when we're talking about a list of questions. I think it was Ed was talking about, you know, the 30-year time frame or whatever.
Mhm.
And maybe a question about explaining what happens when the end of life is achieved on a particular license, Chapter 91 license. What is the process to get that renewed, and what happens if it doesn't get renewed?
Good question.
I'm thinking in particular like Greater Harbor Yacht Club. We know that there was supposed to be something there. We aren't sure of the state of it. And, have they already prepped for the end of life of that where you just can't get there? And similar to what was in front of the White Elephant.
Right, exactly. No, that's an excellent question, because I'm sure some of these licenses are set to expire after that 30-year, and so it would be good to know what happens at that point. It's hard to imagine they just go away. There's no requirement for that. So that's a good question. What's the procedure from that point? Ed?
Arthur Reed might be a good source on this as well, because I've had to deal with them before. And some of the licenses, the original licenses, I think a lot of them were like a lot of the original deed restrictions. They went back 99 years originally.
Right.
There was a date that changed. I can't give you the date exactly where we started taking things back only 30 years. And after that, but a lot of times these things expire and it'd be interesting to find out what is a notice to the owner himself, because it's recorded against their deed. But, if it's 30 years, a number of them expired all over the place here.
I think
Exactly.
we're all pointing to enforcement. As Lee and I were researching, the enforcement seems to be in the hands of the state. And so what do we do about enforcement? Lee has come up with one idea that try to get some enforcement responsibility for Nantucket, on Nantucket. We've heard all kinds of things, that the state won't come down unless there's more than 4 cases for them to inspect. So the enforcement issue is a big question mark.
Exactly. That's one of the things that, in our discussion at last month's meeting, there was a question of 46 Easton Street, I believe it is, where there was that, the property sold, there's a house that needs to be moved. And again, they are very much aware of the necessity of a Chapter 91 license, because a prior deal fell through because something to do with Chapter 91. So, good. And of course, the whole purpose of the forum that the Civic League is doing is to educate, to bring this to the awareness of the public, and to get people such as our committee informed about how the process works, and to answer some of these these questions we have. So yes, Ed.
Do you think our friend from Mattocket Harbor might be there to add some added interest to the meeting? You know who I'm talking about, the issue of the dogs going across this property.
Scott White,
Doctor, yeah, right.
Scott White on Little Neck.
Exactly.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't know. Good point. Good point. I would think that he would be tuned into it. As we know from his presence at our meeting a year or so ago, he had very detailed information about Chapter 91 going back to the original 1600s laws and so on. So
The Chapter 91 itself, if I can put an interjection, has only been since 1866.
right,
The
exactly.
rest of it was like previous English law that was somehow or other Massachusetts still carried.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I've been reading about there's by the way, a section it's on I forget what website it is. It must be on the government's website. You can go to Chapter 91 and oh shoot, I wish I could remember where I found that.
It'll be on mass.gov probably.
Yeah, right, exactly. There we go. Mass.gov and type in Chapter 91. And there's a ton of information there about Chapter 91, how it came about, the different iterations of it and so on. But you're right, it was 1866 when they formalized the Chapter 91 law itself. The earlier one, and I forget what it was called.
Was that the fishing, fouling, navigation one? Is that the one you're talking
Yeah,
about?
right, exactly.
Colonial.
The Colonial Ordinances is what it was.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that go back to the 1600s. And the Colonial Ordinances were created because, remember, in the 1640s, things were, they were making up the rules as they went along. And they were trying to encourage development of the shorefront. And remember, this is Boston. So they were trying to encourage, wharves and this sort of thing. So they passed the Colonial Ordinances, 1641 through 1660 or 1647. There you go. So it wasn't until the land court was created, I believe in 1846, the land court was created. And then in 1866, as Ed said, that's when Chapter 91 was introduced into the Massachusetts regulations.
They used to call it the public trust document, I think, something like that at one time. I don't know where that terminology came from, but that was something. There were roads on the beaches of Dionis, and
Exactly.
that are
Exactly.
somewhat extinct and quitted, somewhat not.
And of course, if you remember, we, the Roads and Right-of-Way Committee, published a history of roads and ways that Fran Cartman did. That was quite a few years ago, 10, 12 years ago, maybe longer. And in that book, it describes much of the early history of roadways on Nantucket, how they came about, and that process. So
I thought that was required reading to go on this board.
it should be. I know. I've been trying to get I've been trying to get copies of that republished, and John Stackpole, who was on the committee at the time, arranged the financing through Harbor Fuel to publish that book. And I've asked John a couple of times if he has the file so we can get back, because it was on Kindle. So, it's got to be available somewhere. So I'll see if I can track down more copies, because you're right. I think everybody, it's a pretty interesting history of ways on Nantucket.
A great book. Cheap. $25 or something. And
Oh,
it's
it's
got my
only
wo- and it's got my wooden. Is it? There you go.
$9.95, right?
It's
$9.95.
got the wooden road to Great Point, Alan, in it.
Yeah.
The picture.
But it's like Cisco beer. It's cheap if you can find it, so to speak.
If you can find it. Yeah, there you go.
I do have
Mhm.
several copies of it remaining, so yeah. So anyone who's interested, I'd be glad to lend a copy to until we can get it republished. And so, okay. Anything else about Chapter 91 that we want to be prepared for during this forum? I say I was, as I say, when I saw the announcement shortly after our February meeting that the forum was going to be held in March rather than April, I was pretty excited to realize that these people who are instrumental in actually carrying out this law are going to be here on island, well, virtually anyway, here on island to discuss all these different facets of it and to answer questions for it. So as Rick pointed out, I think this would be a great opportunity to at least get their contact information, preferably phone numbers. I always find one of the things I really miss about these Zoom meetings is that, it's not quite the same as having someone right there where you can ask a question to. So, all right. Is there anything else on Chapter 91 that we want to prepare for or discuss? Okay, seeing none, let me get to my agenda. Okay, next item. The installation location of the additional public way monuments. And I also added onto that the definitive public-private way map list update. To my knowledge, after my inquiries, there apparently is still no definitive public way or public-private way, or list, I should say, of public ways and private ways. And I've been in touch with Nathan Porter. I've been in touch with Andrew. And I know the electric company used to publish a detailed downtown map that had at least the names of the streets on it. I have an older copy of it, and many of the, we've created so many new streets and new ways around the island that it's not very updated. Yes, Lee?
Alan, the fire company has the definitive list of streets.
Right.
All the new streets, all the new developments, et cetera, because they've got to be able to find a building fast. The challenge is that although it's complete in terms of geography, it has no reference to ownership.
Exactly right.
Right.
It simply doesn't tell us whether they're public or private, but it does tell us what the complete list of streets is.
Snooki, are you familiar with that list?
No, that's something that they put together after I got out in '99.
Oh.
They do have that list. That is, Lee's very correct. Every once in a while, there's things wrong with that list.
Oh, yeah.
Like sometimes a property at one end of Hulbert Ave is actually labeled to the other end, but things like that. But but it is supposed to be where a fire engine can reach the property that it's going to as quickly as possible. So
Right. I had a situation where a resident at the end of Rabbit Run Road was concerned because they wanted to rename the section of road where his property was to Shakamo Road, because they do come together and it's not really clear where one begins and one ends. And the property owner's concern was that if they ever had a fire or had an emergency, if they sent the fire trucks down Shakamo Road, they would never get there. And that was so his concern. I referred him to Erica on the Traffic Safety Commission or committee, and through Erica to the board, the select board. I gave her some background to the situation, and I believe that his address change was back to Rabbit Run, where he actually was his property down there. Yes, Leslie?
Is there a way for the public to access that fire department list of streets? I didn't put it on the website.
Good question. I'm not familiar with the list. I'm not sure, but I'm sure Steve Murphy would be, would be the one to answer that. So I'll put that on my list here.
I think the GIS at one point was supposed to be the public's access to figuring out these things, but I'm not sure if that's
Right.
or not. But
I'll look.
Hey, Alan,
Yeah.
when I was talking with the town clerk's office, and they were talking about that project that they're doing, where they're scanning all of the records for streets, and they're actually doing a database. And it's including the origin as far back as the little business cards and library card catalog system.
Right.
And so they're in the process of scanning it. And so I was looking for a particular street. It was Ames Ave out in Matticat, and it wasn't on a list. And she went in to the database and she was able to pull it up. I don't know if the end all is that they're going to make that available online.
Bill, I missed your introduction. Is this Nancy Holmes, town clerk, who's doing this?
Her office, yes.
Okay,
And so I don't know where they are in it. I think it might have been a project that Catherine was going to start, but Nancy's, I guess they're starting to roll it out because it's something they've been wanting to do, and they know there's a need for it. And it's, as you can imagine, it's a labor intensive thing because they're having to scan all of the stuff. And I don't know if they're scanning it into an Excel kind of database or what, but she was able to access it online to what they had done so far.
Right. I've gotten 3 or 4 calls in the last month. Questions people will either email or call me and ask whether the street that they live on is a public or private way. And in most cases, I can answer that. And then I have to explain to them what the difference is and what they can and can't do on a private road or a public way and the roadway and all that sort of thing. So there it is a persistent question. I mean, over the years we've dealt with public and private ways, and we've had a number of people come in to request specific actions on usually they're on private ways. So, all right, well, I would like to resurrect this, the possibility of getting a more definitive street list. I'll see if I can get a hold of the fire chief, see what he's got, and I'll see if I can get a hold of Nancy Holmes as well and see what she's doing in terms of the list. I have talked to Rob McNeil about this as well. And in looking through my own records, I do have various lists that I've accumulated over the years of public and private roads. And that's, it's not terribly accurate. That's one where Franklin Street was listed as a public way, and it turns out that it really isn't, so. Okay, what else do we want to do? Oh,
Say, Alan,
Yes,
since I don't have any, I haven't been assigned anything on this committee to do, I'd be happy to help you in that effort.
excellent, great. All right, Phil. We'll get together. Are you in the phone book?
I am. I'll
Or you can email me yourself.
I'll email you my the best contact
Okay,
number.
excellent. Okay, super. Again, one of the things about this, the being locked down is so you can't just go to walk into somebody's office and say, "Hey, I have a question for you," and get an answer. It's always kind of tricky. The other part of item number 4 was the installation and location of the additional public way monuments. We have, I believe there are 6 upright monuments, the granite public way monuments, maybe 4 of them. I forget how many there are. And then we have a number of flush ones that go in the ground as well. It's been so long since we've worked on this that the other day I tried to locate in my notes where we had and where we still needed to install those monuments. I did talk with Rob McNeil at the DPW, and he is willing to install them. As you may remember, the committee, we actually installed the 36 upright ones, and I believe we put in 4 or 5, maybe 6 flush monuments over the years. These are the granite, the granite pieces that we put in the ground. And I'm having trouble locating the remaining places. So I think maybe Lee, you and I can get together at some point and see if you remember where we were going to put some of those monuments, so I can get a list and a work order to Rob to get those in the ground. I did check. The monuments, by the way, are in the parking area behind the old electric company, which is now the planning office. So, yes, Lee.
Oh, Alan, I agree to help. I leaned forward to put some notes down on my draft minutes.
Good. I don't want to interrupt that for sure. So, so anyway, that's a project that I'd like to finish. Get those monuments in the ground. Presumably, once. Actually, the DPW has been active. They're still out doing work and so on. They've been replacing fences along Popus Road. They have been into Pulpus Cemetery, clearing brush, and they're sort of working their way around the island. So at some point, once we get a definitive list of where these monuments need to be erected, then we'll fulfill that part of that part of the project.
Alan, one of the open ways are those that have been recently taken or recently opened up, that at the entrance to which we could put a monument. I'm not sure how many there are. The 5 ways off Hulbert Avenue might be candidates.
Right.
We did put one in where
Dick Street.
not James Street, but one of the others. And I think somebody moved it.
Right. No, that was at great. I put those in the ground myself because those were the flush ones. So those are, like 10 by 12 or whatever. And I put one at Willard Street, the one that's next after Willard Street.
They start alphabetical. It could be Henry.
It could be. It could be. I put one at James Street, and that's the one that was taken out. The one at James Street is an abutter's way that goes between 2 properties. There's a hedge on each side of it. It's a fairly narrow passageway. And I was assuming that was one of the ways it was taken. So I put a monument in the ground there, a flush one. And I went back about I guess it was the following summer, and somebody had removed it. So.
Okay, happy to report, as Rick Atherton knows, that has now been resolved, and the town has taken and conveyed the side areas, retaining a footpath down the middle. It
Right.
certainly should, I think it should get an well, no, not an upright. We should relocate that flush one in the footpath.
Okay, I'm thinking if there's another one further down.
You're thinking of Dick Street.
On which one?
Dick Street?
Well, Dick Street has one of the old concrete bounds that was discovered as the DPW was going around and clearing.
So the Johnsons there, right?
Yeah. Let's see. They don't name those streets.
Dick Street's the one with that obvious path near that pool.
Yeah, right. There's one at Charles Street, which is as you're facing the water on the left-hand side of what used to be, I don't know if it still is, the Seward Johnson house. And then Dick Street is the one right after that. And the DPW actually found that when they sent Mo and his crew out to mow or to clear the public ways along Hulbert Avenue. And Dick's Street was where they found one of the old concrete bounds that said public way on it. And that one, they have cleared that one. They've been back to it. So I'm just trying to think. I don't see the names of the. Oh, wait, here we go. It might have been James Street.
Now, James is the most recent thing.
Okay, yeah.
Johnson Street. Is there something on Johnson Street?
Alan,
Yes.
is
I
there
think
something online on the town website or somewhere that has a list of all of these locations? If not, should there not be?
We have a list posted on our website, or it must still be there.
We do.
Where we had the original locations, and I think we even had photographs. And Lee, didn't we put?
It's extensive. I had to make a PDF out of it because it was megabytes of size. but as a PDF, it's, well, P for portable, it's accessible. That's what has to be updated once we get everything in the ground.
Right. But so if you go to the Roads and Right of Way website under, town government and boards and committees and commissions, on the Roads and Right of Way website, you should be able to find it. I haven't been on the website for ages. I hate to confess that, but it should be on there, and it will have all the monuments that we did put in the ground. And there's a lot of information about each one of those as well. I think we did the longitude and latitude of them, as well as, I know, I forgot.
Well, what I'm hearing is it needs to be updated.
Yeah, no, it definitely needs, well, it should be accurate for the ones that are currently in the ground. And what's missing are the ones that we haven't installed yet. That's the list we're trying to locate, and to get the DPW to put those final, well, not final, but those next monuments in the ground. So I still get a lot of comments about those public way monuments, particularly you remember the first one we put in was at Steps, Steps Beach.
Oh, that was quite a process.
That was, yeah, I
That
know.
was the beginning. That was the beginning
That was
of
the very beginning.
everything.
And well,
We
and
we didn't own anything.
I know. That's why we picked that one, because if you're not familiar with the background there, what happened is that the town had built those stairs down to Steps Beach, and they had maintained those stairs for many years, but they had never taken the way. So when
Like every other one.
yeah. So anyway, the properties on both sides of the way were being developed, and the property owners were set to close that off and so on. So it was actually our committee that got the town to take the way. And what we did, or what the town did, is they licensed the, I believe it was a 30-foot way, and they licensed 10 feet to the abutters on either side. Again, it's a license agreement that the town can abandon at their whim, basically. And that allowed the abutting property owners to screen. So that's where all the bushes, the privet, and whatever else they put in came about. And so that was a major accomplishment. And it was out of doing that we extended the program. We found all those other, I believe we have 36 of those monuments in the ground now in various places around the island. And so anyway, that's been, I think that's been a real positive accomplishment of the Roads and Right of Way Committee over the years. So, and that's why I'm anxious to, I won't say complete it, because hopefully we'll find some new ways to the beach. There we go. So Phil, what you see on the screen, we did take photos of them, and excellent. Yeah. So anyway, that is on our website.
Who are those two young bucks there?
There we go. As I say, the committee installed all 36 of those. We did have some help with from Dave Visco. As we
Joe.
Okay, so anyway, anything else on that item? Okay, that was number 4, potential takings list. We had talked last month and prior to that about the taking of Wynn Street and Friendship Lane, the dirt portion of Friendship Lane, which goes from the paved portion up over to, I think it's
Basically, it goes to Somerset.
Summit Pond.
Yeah, Somerset.
Yeah, right. So in the minutes from our last meeting, there was a reference to put it on the future agenda. So I put it back on the agenda to get a, how should I put it? Whether or not we should make a recommendation for that. I had hoped to talk with Rob McNeil about that prior to this meeting, but talked with him, but it was on a couple of different matters. So I haven't had a chance to get to run that by him. I do want to get his input as to a recommendation before we go ahead and put in a recommendation for that. But the idea is the Wynn Street one would connect the Hummock Pond Road bike path with the Matticat Road bike path. Make that connection there. And the other one, let's see. Oh, the Friendship Lane one, that would solve it would make it much easier to get to the cemetery, to the Prospect Hill Cemetery Park that's not on the main site. This is referred to variously as the Jewish cemetery. It's also referred to as, gosh, there are a couple of different names for that.
It's got a formal name of a person and the Prospect Hill Annex. The
Right.
Jewish
Eddie Lewis.
cemetery is one small portion of it.
Right. But the thing is, that is an active cemetery down there. And
Myers.
and the road to get down there is in, pretty bad shape. That's what we're calling the extension of a Friendship Lane. So you can see it. Where is it on the map there? All right. So I think again, I want to wait until till Rob McNeil can weigh in on what he thinks about that before we make a recommendation. So I'll put that on a future agenda once I have talked with Rob, and I'll talk with Andrew Vorse also, who has some background in that as well. Nat, do you know if they're going to hire anyone to replace
Mike? Mike,
Transportation.
Mike Burns?
yeah. Before I try to half answer that question, let me just say something real quick on that Wynn Street stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, on the the Wynn Street, we went over pretty solidly last week. But Friendship, Paul Santos is the engineer, whatever, on that project over there for Mary Ann.
Mhm.
And he might have some details that will help with this that Rob should know, but I don't know if he knows everything about that or not and what's happening over there. There's going to be, obviously some sewer upgrades and some stuff like that, utilities, etc.
Matt, could you repeat his name, please?
Paul Santos, Nantucket Surveyors, sorry.
Paul,
Lee.
P-A-U-L?
Paul, P-A-U-L, yeah. He's on that project. I didn't tell you that last week because I didn't think of it last month.
What is the project?
There's Mary Ann Stanton has a little subdivision in there that's gonna get, make, some changes here and making this road a little bit better. But at the same time, I can't tell you every little detail because I don't know everything. I don't remember it all.
And
But
it's
he can definitely give you some information that will help with this decision with Rob, if we should have it on a takings list or not, for sure.
Right.
It's
Right.
called
Um,
Bittersweet Way or Lane or something.
So,
Can we-
Alan,
Yeah, there's, I forgot, yep. What
Where
you
was
is
the
can't
it?
see
name?
my raised hand, but I'll come after Nat.
Oh, okay.
Yep. I can't remember the name. If you said it, Ed, what did you say?
Bittersweet Lane.
Bittersweet. There you go.
Lane or something.
I remember that name. That's exactly right. That's what it is. And as far as the transportation situation, guy, yes, the light is starting to come on, Alan. So I made a comment last night that I thought was good. I don't know how I thought of it. The people that didn't know Mike miss him. I mean, it's unbelievable. Like, we didn't.
I know. I know.
It's that job is the most complicated, specific thing I've ever seen in my life, and I don't think we all realized how much he was doing to shuffle this, $500,000 around. You probably spend $1 million to get $500,000. It's crazy government stuff, but
Right.
it's hopefully we'll have some information on that soon.
Right. Lee?
On Friendship Lane, it was brought to us originally because there was a drainage problem.
Right.
But when we consider what's happening on developments off Bartlett Road, to have a workable Friendship Lane will be important to have two
Yeah.
ways of accessing those neighborhoods,
Yeah.
escape routes for the number of cars that are going to be building up on Bartlett Road.
Mhm.
I don't remember the names of these little cul-de-sacs, but each one of them's got 4 or 5 houses. Nat, do you recall?
What cul-de-sac you talking about?
Great.
Off Bartlett Road.
Right. Great.
Oh, it's like Cedar Circle and
Great
White
Lane.
Whale and all that. Oh, yeah. I mean, look, back in the day, Alan will remember this like yesterday. Cato Lane was the one that everybody thought should be,
Right.
And it was never going to happen,
Yeah.
ever going to happen, and it's never going to happen. But this one should happen.
This one should hit definitely.
This is the one that needs to happen. Cato is, forget it. It's like Eel Point trying to get to the end from the other end. You got to go Warren's Landing. It's never going to be what you think. So that's how I kind of look at it. And it would be a great, sort of spread the vehicles out and kind of putt along, and at least you're not, driving around in circles. I tell you what, though, Alan, I had to go out to Marshak the other day.
Mhm.
That is, going to Great Point might be easier in some cases. That is unbelievable to get there.
I know.
That will come up in our lifetime as a problem to somehow, I don't know, there must be some kind of an agreement to never open up the other end, huh? With that subdivision, I'll bet you money
Yeah.
that can never be opened.
There is, back when Austin.
Yeah.
Put in, right.
The Austin Farm thing, yeah.
Right.
Oof.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
people must stare at that fence every time they pull out of their driveway.
I know. I think that gate was put there to block the traffic, but it was a gate so that the fire department, if they
Could break through.
could
No, that's
get in
probably
there,
true.
instead of trying to do Somerset Road.
Yeah,
Nat, what's the name of the area?
Marshak. Off of Somerset, on the bad end of Somerset.
As it hits Austin Farms development.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
backside.
where's the gate? Is it on Marsh Hawk? Or are you talking about?
No,
No, it's
it's at
on.
the end. It's Austin Farm connecting in, kinda. There's a
Right.
gate there.
As you go in Austin Farm, all the way at the very end, there's a circle, and it's right at that point, at the very end of Austin Farm.
Got it. Mhm.
We had a speaker here, a neighbor, a couple years ago, talked about this.
Yeah.
What's his name? John Kroll, I think it was, Alan.
Yeah, I've gotten
Who's that
a,
there?
even I think with about a month or two ago, I got a call from someone on Marshall asking about, the questions down there. So,
It's,
okay. Is there anything else on that item?
Yeah, Alan,
Lee?
I recognize that talking to Rob is important because his input on takings is listened to by the select board.
Right.
But do we need to wait an entire month, or may we give you permission to send a letter to the select board after you've talked with Rob, but before our next meeting, to remind them that Wynn Street and Friendship Lane is on our list, and that we think the priority has risen remarkably.
Okay.
yeah, and I would say, Alan, through you, this Wynn Street issue, I just want to just reiterate what I said last time, and they did some brush cutting at at Snell's property. You saw that, Alan, probably.
Yeah. Mhm.
That's just brush cutting. I'm not, there's nothing approved or anything. That they just started mowing, doing whatever they're doing. I had a couple of people ask me about it. The new lady across the street that just bought a house is kind of asking me lots of questions. I'm like, oh my God. But anyway, so we need to make sure that when we consider this, they're gonna need to make sure that that section of Wynn Street by Hedgesbury doesn't get changed. Because those people will have that it needs to stay small and slow and away. What is that, like 12 feet wide? I mean, it can't be more than 12 to 14 feet, Alan.
Yeah, I know.
But if it's taken, you know how people think that it's gonna get changed to something else, and that's not necessarily the case at all. So, that's just a housekeeping issue with the taking more than anything,
Exactly.
But as long as we make sure that we make sure that there's something in that arrangement that keeps it the same, because it won't go over well, I can tell you that. Gets.
I've heard directly from at least one of the neighbors down, and there is that big lot on the left-hand side on the map there, the Snell property.
On the other end, yeah.
Yeah, I understand there are subdivision plans for that property. So if that, depending what
it's going to be very modest. I think you're going to see 80% of that conservation or more. So, from what I'm hearing, is happening. There'll be just few lots along the road, and that's it. The Vestal one, and then something on Wynn Street, and that's it.
Right.
I think. I hope. I think so, though.
Yeah.
So,
although people do use that as a shortcut to avoid the by the cemetery, by the Quaker cemetery.
What's the layout of the dirt? I mean, that's
the dirt
just like
goes down to is it
Vestal.
Upper Vestal Street that crosses there?
But what's the layout,
30, is it 30 or 40 feet?
That I don't know. I'm not sure.
It's like 40.
That's like First Way was 20 years ago.
Right.
It really needs to have a plan that everyone agrees on.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, I'll to follow up on Lee's comment then, your request, Lee, was to contact the select board after I talked with Rob as far as a recommendation?
Correct. A memo through Erica to the select board, reminding them that both Wynn Street and Friendship Lane is on our potential takings list. But at a recent discussion in committee, and then with Rob McNeil, it's apparent that its priority is much more significant and should be considered by them soon.
Should we make sure that we know that it's Somerset Road, Lee, that portion? It's really not Friendship, I don't believe.
That's correct. Yeah, it is Somerset. It shows up.
One of
Technically,
Chester Barrett's there, right?
yes.
Yeah, where Chester Barrett is there.
Somerset turns hard right towards Meadowview or whatever that is that comes out there.
Good.
Has anyone talked to Chester Barrett about, or family about this road? Because I know they've told neighbors that they own the road, but there we go.
Yeah, right.
Mm.
Well, they grade it. They do grade it and take care of it, I guess you could say.
Oh, really?
They give it ones that grade it once in a while. Yes,
It must be pretty far and few between. So,
it is.
yeah, I know. It seems like every time I go down there, I wish I had gone the other way. Okay, is there anything else to come before the committee this afternoon? No, seeing none. All right.
Adjourn.
Sure.
I'm just trying to think. It seems like there was something else I wanted to bring up, but I can't remember what it is. All right, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, second.
Second.
And roll call. Normally, I like to do it the other way where we can just sort of cut it off, but I thought I'd make it official this time. So I'll call the roll. This is to adjourn the meeting. Lee?
Aye.
Nat?
Aye.
Phil?
Aye.
Leslie?
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye, and happy St. Patrick's Day.
Okay. Snooky?
Aye.
And Bill?
Bye. Nice to see the East End back.
You too.
Yes. Jeez.
I had to get my granddaughter to show me how to work this thing.
Well, that's good. So now you're all practiced. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, good. I'll look forward to seeing everybody next month, unless I see you in town somewhere.
Alan, I'm off island tomorrow, but I'll start working on these on Thursday.
Oh, okay. Fine. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
And-
you.
Good night.
Jerry,
Thank you
bye.
very much. See you guys.
Formal.
Great.
Okay, end recording. Leave.